Hey guys, it's Holly here, and before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to personally invite you to our Executive Pastor Coaching Network this fall. If you're enjoying what you're learning on the Vanderbloemen Leadership Podcast, then join us here in our Houston offices to receive in-person coaching from William Vanderbloemen, Tim Stevens, and Tony Morgan. You won't want to miss it. So to learn more, go to our website, vanderbloemen.com, and click on coaching.
Church leaders need intentional development to help them discover their capacity.
When studying leadership, it can be easy to stereotype large numbers. The truth is, some people without any ability to inspire.
But what happens is when you grow, you lose touch intimately. So we always say the church has got to get bigger and smaller at the same time.
Welcome to the Vanderbloemen Leadership Podcast, where we talk about how to build, run, and keep great teams. I'm your host, Holly Tate. On today's episode, we have Chris Hodges, who is the co-founder of ARC, a church planning network, and the founding and senior pastor of Church of the Highlands in Huntsville, Alabama. On today's episode, William and Chris talk about how churches can break the 1,000 attendance barrier. Make sure you tweet your takeaways with us using the hashtag Vandercast. That's hashtag Vandercast. We look forward to seeing what you're learning on the Vanderbloemen Leadership Podcast. Let's jump in.
Well, hey guys, great to have you back again this week. I know it's been a blessing to me to get to interview all these great friends of mine and people that I've known in ministry for years. And today we got a special treat. Holly's already mentioned to you that Chris Hodges is here. Chris is just doing an amazing work, and it's a real joy to have you here, Pastor Chris.
Thank you so much, William. Good to be with you.
Yeah. The Church of the Highlands, just so everybody knows, now worships. I think they have 35 billion people a week attend the church. It's actually
just a little short of that, I think. Yeah,
just a little short of that. But you've been growing a little bit, right? Tell us a little bit about what God's doing there.
Yeah, we're 14 and a half years old. And we have 12 campuses. I think last Sunday, all combined attendance at those 12 locations was just a little over 35,000. So, yeah, God's good.
That's awesome. Seeing a lot of people come to know Jesus and know Him deeper, that's good stuff. So one of the things that Pastor Chris and Church of the Highlands do that is something I've seen God really use is something called the Grow Conference, and that's rooted out of the ARC network of churches.
Right.
Pastor Dino was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he told us all about the ARC and the upcoming conference there. But Pastor Chris, this might be a conference people don't know about. Could you tell us a little bit about the vision behind it and sort of what got on your heart and how it works?
Yeah, two things kind of created it. The first is a lot of the pastors of already existing churches were coming to our ARC functions where we train new church planters, but they already had churches because they just wanted the material. So I knew there was this huge need for pastors to get some nuts and bolts kind of things. But then about four and a half years ago, we were in one of our 21 days of prayer focuses that we do biannually, every January and every August, where I was just seeking God. I was gathered with our people, 6 a.m. We're just worshiping and seeking Lord. I wasn't even really looking for anything. It wasn't, oh, God, speak to me right now. I was just enjoying my intercession and prayer time. When I heard the Spirit of God say to me, and there's only been probably 3 times in my life that I can say it was this absolutely clear, and that where He just simply said, help pastors reach their potential. And then in my heart, I don't know if this was God or Chris. This is just how I think, and this is not necessarily the measuring stick, but it just helps me in my strategic kind of a mind. Help 1,000 churches under 1,000 break that barrier. That's the first thought I had. Let's just help 1,000 churches under 1,000 break that barrier. Just knowing, not that 1,000 is this magical number, but that for a lot of guys, they just simply weren't reaching what they felt like was their growth potential. And every church's growth potential is different. And so kind of my personality, William, is I'm not going to push something through it doesn't work. So I'll pilot it. If it takes off, fine. If it doesn't, I'll go into something else. Then like I don't have anything to do. And so I just told my team, I said, what do you think about this? They liked the idea. And we just put out a tweet 4 years ago. Hey, you're a church, under 1,000, don't feel like you've reached a potential. I don't know how we fit it in 140 characters, but we figured it out. Hey, come to this event. and 400 pastors showed up in the very first one. And then I told them, hey, we're going to pass off some of our nuts and bolts, some of our systems. I'm kind of known as the systems guy, which systems is just how you're going to get your vision done. Everybody is a systems person, but systems just help you deliver your vision. That's what a system is.
That's good. So
it's a good system if it's delivering the vision. People ask me, what's a great system? I say it's the one that works.
That's right.
That's the right system. And so that if we could just give them some systems, and here's what we did. I think that's different. It's not even a conference. It was just like 2.5 days of a leadership intensive, just like a college, but no inspirational messages. I think we're all sufficiently inspired. There, no guest speakers, no vendors, no offerings. Just how much did that backdrop cost on your stage, and can I have one? How much is that projector? How long should worship be? How do you just nuts and bolts. And here's what I told them. I said, if some of you guys were willing to be guinea pigs and try some of it out, if it works, we'll keep doing it. If it doesn't work, thanks for coming, And so, and so, William, this was the cool part. Every church that implemented these, the one that was growing the least grew 30% annually. Most were experiencing 200% and 300% growth in one single year. They just needed a little tweak to the engine. They just needed, they were doing a good job, but sometimes you can get so lost when you're in the middle of something you can't see it clearly. Just making little tweaks to their vision and helping them grow. And so now there are more than 3,000 pastors who come to this event every year, and we resource them. So we give it all away. If we have it, they can have it. We just help them tweak in their systems and just help them grow. So all the information for that is found at growleader.com. That's the website, and it's just something we're very passionate about doing. So to kind of finish it, we offer 3 things. We offer training, we offer resources, and we offer relationships. So like if you're a worship pastor, we can put you in touch with our worship pastors and then others as well who are growing. So we connect those who are trying to grow with those who are growing. All of us are growing, and those relationships turn into great contacts and great networks, and so it's pretty fun.
That's awesome. And if you're a pastor that's listening out there today, so I haven't gotten to the Grow Conference. I want to get to it. Are there a few common, as you say, tweaks that you see coming up more than others that pastors need to do in order to reach their full potential?
Absolutely. So basically, we break it down into everybody's vision should include 4 things. Now, you can do it differently. It can look different. You can say it different. But, I mean, almost everyone agrees. We got to reach some lost people. We're going to have to pastor the people we reach. Got to train them. We got to get them doing something. So that's the Great Commission. That is really, literally, almost cover to cover in our Bible. God has always done that progression in people's lives. So what we do is we teach them how to create a Sunday service that reaches lost people. So I would say, William, for about 60% of the pastors and churches who come, that's their tweak. So they're not even able to do any of the other 3 because they don't get the first one right. So visitors aren't coming, lost people aren't getting saved. So we help them create an experience that Christians still enjoy, but where it grows, because Sunday is the catalyst. So church isn't all about Sunday, but if Sunday doesn't work, nothing else works.
That's right.
It's where it begins. So that's where we start. So we spend about 60% of the ones that we work with. The next is we teach what I think is a biblical model of pastoring people. The Bible says they had temple worship, but house-to-house ministry. And so we help them crack the code of small groups. And for a lot of pastors, that just creates a twinge, and they don't like them. And so we have created groups that work. In fact, we have more people in groups every week than we have in Sunday services at Highlands.
Wow.
So we love groups, and groups are a place where you can see the church has to get bigger, has to. Growth is not an option because heaven and hell are real. So churches have to grow. They have to grow. That's not an option. But what happens is when you grow, you lose touch intimately. So we always say the church has got to get bigger and smaller at the same time. Bigger because people matter, smaller because you matter. The individual matters. So we want people to get close and intimate, and we've kind of cracked the code on small groups. And so that's about another 30%, William, is just helping them figure out the groups thing. And it's a big component. And then the other two, most churches have some process where people are discovering their gifts and being trained and discipled. We have what we call the growth track, which helps people discover their redemptive calling and help them find their purpose. And then finally, how to create an army of volunteers that we call the dream team. And that's that part where we can help people make a difference. And so a lot of people are doing volunteers. I always tell pastors, if you're really going to look deep into Highlands, we don't do everything great. In fact, we do a lot of things, a lot like everybody else. Probably two things we do exceptionally well, and one is how we handle money, and the other is volunteers. I mean, we have 1 out of 3 people, a little over 12,000 people that are actively, serving in some capacity. And so what we offer, the nuts and bolts, is just great weekends that reach lost people, small groups to pastor people, a growth track to help people find their purpose, and then get everybody doing something that makes a difference on a team. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it.
That's awesome. And the Grow Conference is when next year?
Yeah, so we usually do it around the 3rd week of July, and it fills up 4 or 5 months before the event. We were sold out 5 months before this year. So if pastors want to go, this is not a hype thing. This is the truth. If you don't register, it fills very quickly.
That's good. Hey, I want to shift gears just a minute. You're a church planter. You started this church. I don't think, if I understand your story right, didn't know anybody in Birmingham.
Not a soul.
Just showed up and were probably wearing purple and gold, which doesn't work for either team in Alabama. So, in fact, didn't you sneak purple into the logo of your church?
Oh yeah, baby. We even have purple and gold flowers in front of all the signs. It takes some years to figure it out, but it's there. Go Tigers.
That's awesome. So when you're a church planter and you parachute in, and you're sitting there saying, okay, I've got my launch team together. You've grown a little bit, maybe you even launched, and now you're at the spot where I think I need some help. I need somebody that, like, not just I'll volunteer after work, but I need some real help. What would be, in your mind, the things to think through as you're thinking about that first hire after planting out of the gate?
Well, that's where guys like you come in. You're just what a gift you and your team is to the body of Christ. So thank you for what you do as you consult and help us. And so,
thanks.
But yeah, I think probably the most important function I do, William, is the team I build. In fact, I would go so far to say it's the best thing that I've done here.
Wow.
Is the team. I can't emphasize it enough how important it is to build a team. And pastors ask me all the time, what is the first hire? I don't think it necessarily go get this position. I think it's all about the person. Mm-hmm. And so, because they're in different scenarios, you can have people who are serving either part-time or giving their time in any area. So it's not necessarily a particular position that needs to be there first. But I do think you ought to build around people that you love. So I told the Lord I never wanted to hire someone that I wanted to avoid on my day off. Mm-hmm. So I think you look for what Joel Osteen's dad, John Osteen, coined the phrase, the divine flow. You're looking for people where you have this chemistry, where you share culture, you share values. There's a joint calling together. And so I built this around, especially in those early years, around my friends, the people that I love the most and who I know love me. And that has worked very, very well for us. Now, they obviously need to have some level of competency and obviously have to have character. But I think the personal value is very important. I like also looking for people who have what I call positive value. Mm-hmm. So you have to bring some energy. The person who kind of lights up the room, you can get a lot done with a person like that.
Yeah, Bill Hybels taught me years ago that solution side people. You don't live on the problem side of the equation. You live on the solution side.
Exactly. Yep. And you can teach some competencies, but it's hard to teach personality. You need somebody who can just bring some energy and life and joy to the room. So those are really, really important.
I found, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I'm learning as I go, but I found that the advice I end up giving people when they say, what's that first hire? Obviously, you look at your core group, you look to people that know they're bought in, you like being around them, but then they say, yeah, but what position? I say, well, whatever you're not good at. I mean, there's only one of you, so just compliment yourself.
Yeah, so we say it this way, hire your weaknesses.
Yes.
Yeah, just go after those areas. And so it's very important. For instance, I led worship. I was an associate pastor for 18 years before we planted here. And that's what I did. I did the worship. So for the first 4 years of our church, I led the worship. So that wasn't the priority hire, which, in my opinion, for most pastors, that should be your priority hire.
Yeah, most pastors should not sing.
Exactly. and people are making their decision early on in the worship experience, and they see the worship first. So they've already made some decisions, and you haven't even preached yet.
Right.
So it's pretty important. That first 5 minutes before a service and the first 5 minutes into a service, they're already making some decisions. So that's a pretty important position. That's
awesome. Yeah, our COO was my first hire, and he was an event planner for the Houston Texans. And a lapsed Catholic. Like, he loved Jesus, but he didn't know. I had him take notes on an Andy Stanley podcast and then write a blog post about it. First day or two he's there, he's like, who's Andy Stanley?
Yeah.
Thought, oh, boy. So, we had to teach him that part, but he had the chemistry. I knew I wanted to hang around him, and he had that solution side thing. And most importantly, he complimented the places I was bad.
Yeah, that's so good.
If I went to see Jesus tonight, he'd run the place because he knows the church better than anybody here now.
That's so good. Yeah.
And is it Lane was with you pretty early on, right?
Exactly. So my first hire was a guy that was actually in my youth group when I was the youth pastor back in Colorado. And so, and he brought such energy to the team, and he actually helped me build the team. In our first year, we started an intern program, and Lane created a way for basically 19 college-age students to pay us to work for us. Well,
that's pretty good.
If we would just pour into them, and almost all 19 of them are on our team today, leading in a huge way. So that was a big win.
And he wasn't like a seminary grad with a big pedigree and all that, right? Like trucks,
no,
right?
He was actually a business guy, right? Running his dad's family business, which was a towing company in Colorado. Yeah. So he didn't have any ministry training. He had been in church his whole life. But I didn't really need. I was going to preach. I didn't need somebody, with a seminary degree per se. I just needed somebody who could really help me build teams of people.
That's awesome. One last big topic I want to talk about that people don't know about. You talk about we got 12 campuses, and y'all don't know, but Pastor Chris is really humble. I have trouble with pride, like, regularly. Like that old Ted Turner quote: "If I had a little more humility, I'd be perfect." That's my issue, not his. He's humble. He's not telling you the whole story. They got 12 campuses, but you're also in the correctional facilities in Alabama, right? I mean, that's really cool. Tell us about that. Pastors could learn from that. You don't have to be a big church to get into that scene. Tell us.
That's right. So Alabama has 21, and we're in 13 of these facilities. And that all happened because of one guy in our church who basically asked me if he could bring on DVD our services into the prisons. And I said, yeah, sure. I said, but Sundays aren't going to change their life. They need small groups too. They need the between Sundays. And because there's been prison ministry for years, William, and people preaching at other people, and nothing's changing because that's not God's system. God's system isn't just to be preached to. You need somebody to work it out, pray for you. James 5:16, confess your faults, pray for each other, then you'll be healed. I said, if you'll bring groups in too, you can do it. And so he brought a character training curriculum out of the book of Proverbs to the prison. So I'm preaching on Sunday. We drew a crowd of inmates, but then this curriculum, now check this out, so changed the complex of that first prison, where there's two things that the wardens and the Department of Corrections people care about, and that is get the violence out of the prison. They just, if you can solve that, you can. And then secondly, they call it the recidivism rate, which is the rate that if they let them go, that they return.
Sure.
And those two things changed so dramatically, like violence in the prison went to almost nothing, and 100% of the men that were in our program and our curriculums that were released never came back. They were
wow.
So the commission of prisons came and basically said, you can do what you want. And so it's very difficult to do because it requires so many volunteers, because we're not just there on Sunday, we're there between Sundays leading small groups in those prisons as well. But praise God, we have enough volunteers to do 13 of them, and it's amazing what God is doing. And so I give credit to our state too, who, and to our leaders who have the vision to be able to allow us to do something like that. But it's a whole lot more than just church. I mean, I love church, but man, they need something much deeper than just that experience.
Yeah, so good, so good. Well, coming toward the end of our time, I want to just ask you a couple questions. As you all who listen regularly know, we ask kind of the same questions as pastors, just hear what they're doing. So tell us right now a book you've been reading that is really just lighting you up, and you're not allowed to say the Bible, and you're not allowed to say good to great, because those are like the two choices, right?
So here's a great one. One of the best books I've recently read is called Talk Like Ted by Carmine Gallo.
It's a fantastic book.
Yeah, so I'm really, I've been in ministry 32 years, but I'm still working on my communication, and I think I've got a long way to go in it. And phenomenal book. I mean, really, really good. So she studied, tens of thousands of TED Talks, or thousands of TED Talks, and found characteristics that all TED Talks have, and she teaches through those, like everything from body language to storytelling to all. It's a great read. It's a lot of fun, and I promise you, if you'll apply those principles, pastors, your communication will grow, which is so key. I think it's the message isn't the problem. Sometimes the delivery of the message that is key. So that's a great book. I highly recommend.
Awesome. What's an app you've downloaded recently that you're like, now that's cool?
My favorite one right now is Periscope. So,
okay, yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Periscope is I think it's built out of the Twitter family, and it allows you to live broadcast a feed. So when you go live, it automatically posts a tweet that says Chris Hodges is live on Periscope, and you can click the link and you can join in, and then it archives the video for 24 hours, and then it disappears. And it's pretty cool. So I'm using it. So I do what I call Sunday night reflections. So I'll get on a lot of times on Sunday nights and just kind of reflect on the week, reflect on the day, teach something that I learned through the whole process of being a pastor, and talk about my week coming up. And I pray for people as they start their new week. So it's a fun little 15-minute live chat late on Sunday night. So a lot of different things. So it's fun. I love Periscope.
That's awesome. And so the last question, don't have to answer if you don't want to, but, when I was a pastor, I just had so many times where I flubbed up, messed the lines, missed my cue, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Is there a story you can tell us to make us realize we're all human? When did you just drop the ball on stage?
Well, I didn't drop the ball. I dropped my fly. I walked out and, couldn't see nothing, but my fly was down. And one of our pastors on the front row was going. And so here's a great tip, pastors. I just said, hey, everybody, why don't you say hello to the person next to you and greet somebody. And I turned around, and only the worship team could see me, and I went, and they went. So only about 8 people saw that, and the pastor on the front row, hopefully. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, so when you see a pastor do a meet and greet, it's not always because he actually wants you to say hi to that person. He's fixing something else. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thanks for coming on. And those of you who are listening, if you have not ever gone to churchofthehighlands.com and downloaded a message, you need to do it. And I'll tell you the one that blessed me the most this summer on my summer break was the series on vision.
Yeah.
I don't know how
again.
that...
Dream Again. It was called Dream Again. Yeah.
Dream Again. And
yeah.
I mean, it had to be well received by your people. It was just amazing.
Yeah, that was a big one. Thank you, William.
So go bless yourself and download Chris's teaching. He's actually who we listen to when we have our all staff. He does our devotion. I don't know if he even knows that, but we just put Pastor Chris on the screen. Everybody, be quiet and learn. And it's a real blessing. So thanks for coming on today, Pastor Chris. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening. Hope you'll tune in. And if you've got tweets you want to send, the hashtag is Vandercast, so you don't have to spell Vanderbloemen. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can connect with us on Twitter at VanderbloemenSG and hashtag your key takeaways with hashtag Vandercast. You can also receive more information about what we do here at Vanderbloemen Search Group and notes from today's podcast at vanderbloemen.com/podcast. See you next time.